This year's dialogue on ASEAN maritime security started today in Manila. The three-day event gathers representatives from all 10 member states alongside regional experts and marine scientists. The dialogue is being held less than a week away from the annual ASEAN summit, where issues like regional security are expected to take the spotlight. Organized by non-governmental organization We Protect the Seas, is being hosted with the noticeable and deliberate absence of both the US and China. Organizers say this will help members focus on regional issues without the influence of these countries. The summit on maritime security comes the same week as joint maritime drills held by the US and the Philippines in the South China Sea. Dubbed the Maritime Cooperative Activity, or MCA, it's the first such exercise by the Allies' Coast Guards and Air Forces. Manila says this show of force reflects its whole-of-nation approach to maritime cooperation. And for more, we are joined by CNA's Buena Banal live in Metro Manila. Buena, thank you for joining us. How is this dialogue setting the stage for the annual ASEAN summit happening next week?
Well, this dialogue on ASEAN maritime security comes ahead of the reported self-imposed deadline of ASEAN representatives to conclude negotiations within the next year for a code of conduct in the South China Sea, or COC. The COC, of course, would set out the norms for the conduct of states in relation to the disputed waters. And if you recall, it was in 2017 during the chairmanship of the Philippines when a framework for the code was endorsed by ASEAN and China, and next year, 2026, is also the Philippines' chairmanship of ASEAN, and it is expecting intensified talks in Kuala Lumpur for negotiations towards a COC. The Philippines Foreign Minister Enrique Manalo has said as much, and the Philippines, its government agencies, including the National Security Council, the Philippine Coast Guard, and the Transparency Group of the West Philippine Sea, which is how it calls its maritime zone in the larger South China Sea, are among the institutions supporting this event. And that shows you its commitment towards meeting that 2026 deadline. I spoke with analyst Renato De Castro, a distinguished professor of international studies at the De La Salle University, among the strategic thinkers here. And he also said that this dialogue helps gauge what are the challenges for those negotiations, as well as what are the common grounds for the ASEAN representatives in those negotiations.
Buena, the keynote address was delivered by a Philippine official. Why is this dialogue so important for the country?
That's right. National Security Advisor Eduardo Año delivered the keynote speech where he talked about this common refrain or criticism against ASEAN, which is the ASEAN way of consensus-based approach. And he's saying that that can become an obstacle to the COC negotiations, which makes dialogues like this important. Let's hear from Mr. Año.
Even if negotiations are moving at a glacial pace, we must ensure that the COC's provisions align fully with international law.
Mr. Año was, of course, among others, referring to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which designates the belt of sea a country can claim as its maritime zone based on distance from its coast. And a 2016 arbitral ruling actually invalidated China's 9- now 10- line claim as violative of UNCLOS. But in the next 2 days, beyond UNCLOS, the policy makers and also strategic thinkers here will also discuss, among others, ocean conservation as well as energy security.
Thank you so much for that update. Buena Banal reporting live in Metro Manila.